Welcome back to the Now Morning Show. It is a rainy Monday morning, so of course, if you're now leaving home, please remember to be safe on the roads. We have a great show today, Ruckus, and of course, we are going to be taking your calls pretty soon. It's going to be 622-4010, not now, but pretty soon we're going to be opening up the phone lines, and we're going to be talking, as Ruckus and I were discussing this morning, we're going to be talking about a lot of the aspects of domestic violence. We're talking about the shelters, we're talking about how it directly and indirectly affects those who have, experienced some sort of domestic violence. And of course, we're also going to be talking to, I'm actually looking forward, Ruckus, to that shelter conversation. Yeah. Because I want to know, I think a shelter is more than just a place to stay, but it's also, they offer rehab services as well. And they offer that safe space for them to kind of feel safe before they get back on their feet.
Well, there's also a place that they can help them to get back on their feet.
Yes.
A place that you can have some savings, you can start building your savings, you can get a job, and if that's what one of the things that you need, whatever your needs are, I think that they kind of just tailor it to suit whatever you may be lacking to be able to stand on your own 2 feet. They definitely would be assisting. But when you give us a call at 622-4010, you can let us know what you think is causing the increase in violence against women. Or maybe it's just the increase in reporting, maybe it's the increase in deaths, maybe it's been going on and we just been turning a blind eye to it. I don't know.
Yeah.
It feels that way sometimes because it's not a new phenomenon. It's not something that's brand new, but it seems like it's increasing steadily.
Yeah.
I know that during the pandemic, the initial stages of the pandemic, we saw an increase in domestic violence reports, and everybody assumed it was just because now you're home. Now everybody home together, so you assume, well, they don't realize that you really do like this person that you get married to, and it gone south. But even now that things are opening back up, we still see the numbers steadily rising and the cases of death steadily rising. And that part is the scary part because there must be a better way to end things.
Yeah.
If things don't work, like that's life, you know what I mean? That's life. But men, there must be a better way to end things. You can walk away. And until we realize that as men, we're going to end up in this cycle. How do we fix that? How do we fix the men that can't take their ego being bruised, or being rejected, or being turned down, or realizing that this is over? You can't own a human. Yeah. Even your child, you don't own. Like, you don't own a human. You know what I mean?
One of the things that a lot of psychologists actually discuss about domestic violence is that controlling factor, right? I need to control you. It is really a power struggle, right? I need to control you. I need to tell you who you can talk to, what time you can come home, what you can do. And I think...
You want a pet, you don't want a, right? You don't want a relationship.
And I think that is one of the issues. And I mean, even like early detection, when you're in a relationship as a woman, sometimes you see the signs, and sometimes love kind of clouds your judgment.
Is it love?
Well, in some instances it is, right?
Love
clouds your judgment, and you ignore the signs. So, for example, you're on your phone talking, and he tell you come off the phone. Oh, he's being so nice. He's being jealous. And so sometimes we romanticize these negative behaviors, and we don't see how serious it can turn until too late. When the first incident happened, and you realize that you have to be wearing makeup to cover your eyes, and then you realize that your children are involved, and it's a whole cycle. And so I think one of the important things is to realize those signs early and stop romanticizing it. Being jealous is not something romantic. It is him trying to control you. And I think that's what we need to look at as well, those early detection signs that we need to see and nip in the bud or leave.
I mean, at what point do we change from it being cute to it being a red flag? Because, like, people often say, I've heard women say it, like you mentioned before, if he ain't jealous, I mean, he don't really love me. But then at what point does it go from being cute jealousy to a red flag? You know what I mean?
At that point, Ruckus. At that first initial point, you see, sometimes we kind of let things linger too long, and when it lingers, it festers and it becomes into this big problem. At that point, when you realize, okay, cool, so it happened once, okay, cool, it happened a second time, a third time, no, this needs to stop.
So the third time?
Don't tell me, well, I mean, it depends on your relationship as well.
Yeah, because here's what I ask, right? And I'm breaking it down like this, right? Because it have oftentimes when, like me and you could be talking, we could be courting or whatever the case is, but we know nothing serious. And then a day I might see you talking to the next man, and I feel like kind of how, you know what I mean? And sometimes it just means that I just realized I have feelings that I didn't realize were so strong, right? So that's one form of jealousy. But at what point, all right, so if I come and say, oh gosh, no, but girl, I kind of feel like how... when I see you talking to her, and and it make me feel that thing, and I feel jealous. I kind of want you to let me do this thing exclusive now. At that point, this is a decision that we're going to make to enter a relationship. officially, properly, right? Based on the feeling, let me say it's based on the feeling of jealousy that just triggered it and said, oh, wait, I have these immense feelings for this person. Is that bad?
Well, I mean, does the feeling of jealousy come with action? Right? So is it that
the action was me saying, let me get together.
You and I were now into a conversation. I mean, well, as you mentioned, we're now courting and that kind of thing. And you say, oh gosh, boy, this make me feel jealous or whatever. Then we need to have a conversation. Are you jealous because I'm talking to this person because you have feelings for me? Or are you jealous because you're afraid that I'm going to leave you? You understand? And so when you bring in that other aspect of it, you begin to realize, oh, wait, hold on. This person might be a bit controlling. Red flag number one.
So then do we analyze from that point? Do we then confront it and say, from that first moment, and say, wait, why are you really jealous?
Exactly.
Is it because X is X and Y is Y? Or
is it because you're afraid I'm going to leave?
Yeah. And I think we, as men, would have to do a lot of introspection at that point. And if you force the introspection to happen from that very beginning moment, it might be able to make a big difference.
Of course. And there's also honesty as well, because there's the introspection and you thinking to yourself, I don't want to talk to anybody else. But you go say, oh gosh, babes, come now. No, I just feel a little jealous because I want you for myself. You see, that is the next thing too. You see, want you for myself, very, very different, and dangerous path to go down. So it's a whole conversation, yeah.
So it have words that we can look out for and say.
Because then that suggests possession.
Ownership,
exactly. And I am my own person, you can't own me. And so when I begin to do things differently to what you want me to do, then the problem begins.
So what's the difference between then exclusivity and wanting you for myself?
Exclusivity is knowing that we are together, but I'm still my own person. If it is I want to go out with my friends and do brunch at 12 o'clock on a Sunday, you can't have a problem with that. You know what I mean?
Okay,
because I am my own person.
Can I then have a problem with you going to brunch with a bunch of friends, let's say male friends, and I feel how about that? Is that something that's allowed, or is it that
what
that's
are you
an
feeling
instant red
how
flag?
about? What is the issue?
I mean, maybe there's been situations in the past where I've been hurt. That woman horn me. It's have real Hondas pass in this land. Real Hondas pass. So if a horn passed before, and I say, well, this situation remind me of when I did get horn.
You remind me of a girl that I once knew.
let me take a break and come back with more insight in the morning show, because you see this road we doing now here? It's pressure. We get into it this morning. Stay tuned.
The best toy tickets are at thebesttoys.com. Shop for the best brands you love at the best prices. Like VTech, Leapfrog, Fisher-Price, Play-Doh, Hot Wheels, Barbie, CoComelon, LOL, Baby Alive, Crayola, Lego, Nerf, and remote control vehicles, kids learning desks, and educational toys. Ride-ons, bikes, drones, science toys, and board games and puzzles. And a wide range of baby items. We also have the best devices for school, like laptops, the Amazon Fire 7 tablet, the Amazon Fire 8, 10, and Kids Edition tabs, as well as cases and accessories. Visit us in-store at Forces Flagship MacBean. Shop online now at thebesttoys.com. No credit card required. Free delivery throughout Trinidad and Tobago on orders over $300. Cash or links on delivery. Order via call or WhatsApp at 32DBEST to order. And remember, we have the best toys at the best prices.
Don't make them ask. Wear your mask.
Trinidad and Tobago, get ready for the ultimate musical experience. Saturday, June 4th, the Waterfront Hyatt Regency Trinidad, Suite 100.1 FM brings to you Jazz. A fusion of our music and culture. Introducing performances by Pedro Lazama, Joshua Regrello, Nyla Blackman, and Soca. Sharada Pattisar with a tribute to her father, Mangel Pattisar. Introducing Adrian Kong, called Bieber Henderson, featuring Kay Allen and Mauricia Kagan. Freetown Collective, Patrice Roberts and the A-Team Band. The Boss, King David Rudder. And the Queen of Bacchanal, Destra. Limited advance tickets now, $500. Premium drinks inclusive. Dress code, you must wear white. To purchase tickets, log on to www.islandetickets.com. No credit card, no worries. Stay tuned to Sweet 100 and follow us on Facebook and Instagram for ticket outlet details. Jazz, a fusion of our music and culture, brought to you by the #1 adult contemporary station in Trinidad and Tobago. Sweet 100, powered by Digicel. Digicel, better together. Udicott, signed, sealed, delivered. And the TDT Limited Media Network. This is Jazz.
Minutes after 6 o'clock. Welcome back inside the Now Morning Show. We're having a little bit of technical difficulties with one of our guests this morning, which is why we're still just chatting, and we want to welcome and invite you to join the conversation. 6224010. We're talking about domestic violence. Now, Kimberly, we've been talking about it from the perspective of the woman as the victim, and we have seen instances or heard of instances or know of instances where it's vice versa. Would you say is the same level of red flags that you could look out for when woman is the abuser?
Definitely. I mean, and again, it goes back to what is joke and what is serious, you know? So you get in this relationship with this woman, and all of a sudden, you know, you have your female friends and she don't want you talking to your female friends. And then, I mean, we've heard these stories, right? You're getting ready to go out at night, she takes your car keys, you know what I mean? She's looking on your phone to see who you're talking to, you know, things like that. And then, of course, it gets even more toxic when they actually, I've heard some women put their lives at risk. If you leave me, I'm going to kill myself. Those sort of things. And those things are not cute.
I know a story. This girl jumped out of a moving car just so that she could get damaged and say that the man abused her.
Yes,
and
there's
that's
also
another
sabotage.
form of abuse. It's another form of abuse where there are people who will mentally and emotionally abuse you and never touch you.
Yes.
And never ever touch you. That's still domestic violence, because it can still have negative impact in the long run. And my thing is that, you know, we always see these signs or these end results, right? But for somebody to feel that they need to check your phone or hide your car keys and do these sort of things, it's a level of trauma that they're dealing with
as well,
that they haven't been able to get over.
Yes.
So how do we get to the root of all these problems? That for me is key, because as a society, we're not going to go forward if we can't get to the roots of the problems. We can't keep trimming the branches and expect the tree to stop growing. The tree will keep growing. If you just pick off a leaf or two, it will keep growing.
No, and Ruckus actually raised a good point. So the easy response as well is to go to a therapist, right? But what if the woman is not even seeing that she has a problem? This might have been learned behavior that she probably saw someone else do, you know, family members do, friends do, whatever.
Or
and in her case, it worked. Exactly.
Yeah.
And in her case, it worked. So why am I going to talk to, you know, a therapist if I don't believe that my behavior is toxic, or if I don't believe that I need help? And so that is where we need to start to, you know, have the conversations about, listen, this type of behavior is wrong, and you need to see someone. And this is not going out brunch with your girlfriends and venting. This is somebody, actually a psychologist, giving you a prepared plan of what you need to do to get over this trauma that you have.
But before you get to the psychologist, I think when you do go to go to brunch with your friends, instead of just bad talking the man, maybe your friend can say, McGill, I feel you might need some additional help with this.
But Ruckus, the friend can't advise her friend because she's going through it as
well.
They
must have one in the crew, man. They must have at least one in the crew in a healthy relationship. Don't do me that now.
No,
at least one.
No, but Ruckus, you see, what we are also trying to uncover as well is that there's a bunch of young women in society who are dealing with traumas. And we don't know how to correct each other because this was learned behavior that we've grown accustomed to. And so it takes either us, you know, doing that research or realizing that something is wrong for us to also not only police ourselves, but police our friends as well.
So how do we get to the point of realizing that something is wrong? How do I help you to get to that point?
Yeah.
As a friend, as a person, as a man in society, as a woman in society, how do we get each other to say, all right, something wrong here. This may not be okay. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because we live in a time when everything is easily cancelable, right? So we always want the P's and Q's to not be cancelled.
Yes, and always be politically correct.
And always be politically correct.
Yes.
But at what point do we say, here is no, I might actually have a problem here, you know. How am I going to tell this friend of mine that this is not okay? Can I tell this friend of mine that this is not okay?
The good news, Ruckus, is that with the increase in mental health services, I believe that the conversations are beginning to happen in terms of, okay, this is good behavior, this is not okay behavior, and so these services are available. And so I think the more we have these conversations and the more we put these information out there, I think people are going to start to realize what's happening. It's going to be tough because, of course, they always say admittance is the first step to everything, right? And again, learn behavior. So it's going to be hard to break out of those habits. But we're having the conversations now. I mean, everything is on the internet. You're seeing the things that we're having. We're seeing what is wrong behavior, what is right behavior, how to work in relationships. And so at the end of the day, Ruckus, the onus is on you to realize that you have a problem and it's time to do something about it. And you know what's the sad thing? You realize that you have a problem where every single relationship is negative.
You would think so, right?
But
you would
every
think
single relationship is negative.
We have Freeport on the line. Good morning, Freeport.
Hi, good morning, Ruckus. Good morning, Kimberly. How you all going?
Good morning.
We dry. Thankfully, what are you doing this morning, Charlie?
I'm fine, Ruckus. Thanks for knowing who you're talking to, Ruckus. After all these years, I'm very grateful that we know each other personally. I think we need to get to the point whereby mental health is something we need to take serious. I heard this on TV recently. They said that we need therapists, and it's like going to a gym, like your mind going to a gym to become stronger, to come to fortify yourself. And I find that was a very fitted example whereby we can use our mind to get stronger with a therapist. I don't have a problem going to a therapist. I can tell you personally, we all of us have some form of the stigma, because we all have some form of issues when it comes to pertaining to our society and what we are going through, and it does create an effect, because everything has an effect. I think that we need to understand that, Trinidad, to a point, we need to put therapists whereby to teach people the value of what they have inside and what they can really grow and learn to become stronger. I think it's high time we see it happen over and over and over again. It shows something is wrong with our society. A society will not kill and murder if something is not wrong. Something is wrong. And we need to get to the root of the matter, because it keeps on occurring. And last week it was 1 week. That's really a crisis. So I think, talking about it is good, but we need to have action with it as well. I think the government should put something in place whereby therapy should be a major part in healing. We need it. Trinidad is crying, and we are seeing it happening day by day. And if we don't take heed now, what will our future be? And that's what we're going to come to. And this is what I think we need to understand, that therapy, nothing is wrong with it, but we need to implement it by become and normalize it. Because nothing is wrong with therapy.
Thank you so much, Sheldon.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Take care. I mean, yeah, that's the same thing we've been saying, you know, but the government, everybody... Or they have this
you
way,
go
Trinidad.
first, because I have thoughts on that as well.
They have this way, right, Trinidad and Tobago, where let's expect the government to come and be these superheroes. Like, we have this hero complex. We always want somebody to come and save us. But you know, the reality of the situation is, nobody coming to save you. You are the hero.
Of course.
You are the hero in the story. And you have to save yourself. And you can also save the person next to you. You can do that. Every one of us have the responsibility of doing that ourselves. Yeah. And it's important that we realize that. It
is important. I was actually hoping to speak to our guest this morning, who is the president of the Coalition of Domestic Violence, because I wanted to hear her thoughts on, how does education play a role in making our students aware of these behaviors at a younger age?
So,
for example, primary, secondary, tertiary, how can we get this in the schools so that they know what to look out to, so that they know how to protect themselves even before? Because what we're seeing now is a lot of adults who probably didn't have the information before to know how to deal with it. So how do we get this, or is it possible to get it in our schools? And I wanted to hear her thoughts on that.
Yeah. I mean, it's the same thing like you said, right? It's learned behavior.
Yeah.
And I've heard people say, if he don't hit me, he don't love me. And silly things like that, like, you know, and that's just because that's what they see as love growing up.
You're saying silly things, but there's also a cultural aspect to that as well, huh?
But that's what I mean. Like, that doesn't make it any less silly.
Right.
I mean, because it's cultural doesn't make it any less silly. For me, it's like, you can't tell me that you're equating violence to love. Like, there's no world in which that makes sense. I mean, if you're into kinky things, that's a different story.
that's a whole different
consent
topic. Yes.
and agreement, right?
Yes.
But if you're just talking about physical violence and you're equating that with love, you probably have trauma.
Yeah.
And you probably need to see somebody about it.
Yeah.
I don't know how else to put it.
No, of course. I mean, sometimes it's not so black and white. I mean, it is, and I was saying culture because it would have been things passed down from generation to generation, right? My great-grandmother went through it, my grandmother went through it, my mother went through it, and here I am. So there's a cultural
This Gen Z generation has been saying, I want to break that mold. I can't, I've heard women go to their mothers and say, you know, this situation that I'm in, this marriage that I'm in, I mean, you know, I know I say I'm here for life and all that stuff, but I'm feeling like it might go real bad because he's starting to show these signs, the same red flags we talk about. And they would go to their parents to talk about it. And mommy go say, well, don't worry about that, and I go pass. I went through that too with your father.
Exactly.
But is that correct?
It really isn't. It really isn't. But mommy doesn't know better.
So do we listen to mommy or do we go and find therapy? Mommy went through it. Mommy's still alive.
We break. No. What
mommy
I think
good.
we should
Mommy
do,
raised good children.
Listen, apart from mommy being good, mommy might also still be in the relationship. Huh?
Of course.
Because most of the times, mommy stick it out. Right?
Of course.
But I mean, the important thing, as you said, Ruckus, is to break these generational habits that that you basically have. And so again, the conversations we're having, you realize, listen, mommy, I love you, but this is not the way for me. And you take it upon yourself to change that behavior, because you know what, you might be raising a young daughter as well, and you don't want her growing up experiencing what you had experienced, and even what your mother had as well. And so I think children play such an important role, you know, as parents, because you realize that I don't want my children to go through what I went through. Let me break it now.
But another important factor is for the parents to also allow the children to break it, because there have been times when you know, you hear stories of mommy when the daughter going and look for therapy because she realized she don't want to go through that, right? And mommy can say, oh, you feel here, you feel better than me, you feel because I tell you I can get through it, you're gonna be all right. And it becomes this level of tension within the family because you want to break that mold and do better for yourself. So that's where it gets tricky. You know, you have to also allow children to take their own path and to choose the way that they want to live, not because you did it and you survived. It's like corporal punishment, you know?
Exactly.
It's like you get licks when you was young and you're all right. That don't mean everybody all right. We have a lot of broken people in society, a lot of hurt people who are out here hurting
other people. True.
Give us a call at 622-4010 and let us know what you think is really causing this level of domestic violence that's happening.
One of the things I will also say, Ruckus, as well, is that I wanted to just give commendations as well to the police service for that gender-based violence unit that they set up a few years ago. I mean, because of the unit now, and one of the things that the police officers did as well, they trained their police staff, those who are working in the unit, how to respond to people who come and make the reports. And I think since that was set up, there has been a lot more people coming forward because they feel so safe in coming to report these crimes. And I know we didn't have that before. And I think that it's a start, Ruckus.
It definitely is a start.
It is a start. It's not perfect.
We still have the challenge. We still have the challenge of, you know, because there's a one-door policy where you can go to any station and report any crime.
Yes.
If you walk into a police station that might not be as well trained in the areas of gender-based violence, you can still end up in a situation where you are being laughed at, especially as a man going to report a situation of domestic violence. If you go to other men in a police station, oftentimes, not saying all the time, oftentimes you will be ridiculed. They might take your report, you know?
Right. I was just about to say, yes.
Sometimes they laugh you out of the station.
Yes.
Or sometimes you feel so bad that you don't even, and I'm going to bother no more because or they're making me feel emasculated at this point.
But make the report because you have evidence in case something happens, this is what happened. And then your right authorities can turn around and say, listen, this person would have reported this as so date. Did you take them serious? Did you follow up? Did you do what was required? And then so some form of disciplinary action maybe can occur if situation get dire.
And then we have the flip side of it where people go and make reports based on falsities and falsehoods. And, you come now and you see a situation where a police come to lock up somebody and the man said, but what are you talking about?
Yeah, I didn't do anything.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And we've seen situations where the police show up and work for people, or the police show up at your house and you want to know, well...
As a form of embarrassment.
Exactly, and people do that purposely. So we need to be careful of that as well. You need to be responsible with your actions, especially when it comes to things like reporting crime.
I know.
And reporting purported crime.
But we are going to have a long conversation here. It is Monday. Rockers to say, I'm Kimberly D'Souza. We're going to take a break and be right back. Stay with us.
DBest Baby Registry is here. At dbesttoys.com, we want to help you get everything needed to comfortably welcome your new baby. dbesttoys.com is loaded with all the baby essentials to suit your style and safety needs and to fit everyone's budget. Parents can create their baby registry from the comfort of their homes. Just log on to dbesttoys.com and click on the registry tab. Browse all our items from cribs, strollers, car seats, walkers, and bouncers to feeding and nursing accessories, potties, play mats, clothing, and sensory toys. And simply click Add to Registry. Parents also enjoy 10% off their remaining items in their registry upon completion. Be gifted with what you really need to keep your baby happy and healthy and create the best baby registry at dbesttoys.com today.
Patients that come in with sensitivity and bleeding gums, that's a red flag. I'll definitely recommend new Sensodyne sensitivity and gum because it has dual action. We're already using toothpaste. Why not switch it out for something that's going to help reduce both sensitivity and the gum issues?
15 minutes past the hour of 8 o'clock, and it's the Team Up Morning Show.
Make them ask, wear your mask.
I'm Renee Sion with another edition of Caribbean Week in Review.
Herbs have been around ever since the evolution of mankind. Ancient civilizations, Babylonia, Mesopotamia, Greece, India, all record in the hieroglyphics the use of herbs. Wars have been fought, romances blossomed, trade routes established through herbs and spices.
Pharmacists created a bridge between the systems. They were the ones that the average person would go to before they went to a private doctor, before they went to the hospital. So the pharmacist would diagnose and prescribe, sometimes even treat. And so they wouldn't have to move fully into this other tradition that they didn't really trust.
One day I met an old woman selling, and I wanted something to eat. I say I was going to put a bit in she way, but I take back when...
It's just about 46 minutes after the hour of 6 o'clock. Welcome back to the Now Morning Show. Now, this morning we've been talking at length about domestic violence and also about gender-based violence. And with me in studio, I have Inspector Michelle Lewis from the Police Service. And we're going to be talking about the gender-based violence in terms of the gender-based violence unit, how you can report instances of gender-based violence. And we might also be looking at the numbers to see if the unit has been successful in getting those detection rates. So, Inspector Lewis, good morning. It's always a pleasure to have you here on Now.
Good morning. It is always our pleasure, Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, to be here with you all. So thanks again.
Now, Inspector, the gender-based violence unit, just tell us a little bit about it, when it started, and have you seen an increase in people coming to report instances of gender-based violence since the unit was established?
So the unit was established because we saw an increase in the country and within communities in relation to gender-based violence or domestic violence matters, be it against male or against female. So it was set up just about 3 years ago for that specific purpose, and now it falls under the umbrella of sexual offences unit, special units, so that you have the gender-based, you have the child protection, and both of them fall under the directive of Superintendent Guy Allen. And they are located at St. Clair Station. That's where the secretariat is. Of course, within every division, we have one unit. So, for example, at Maloney, it would be at, in Northern, it would be at Maloney Station. In Northeastern, it would be at Mova Station. Port of Spain, it's at Bessel Street, and so on. So, within each division in Trinidad and Tobago, there is a gender-based violence unit that any member of the public can go to, and it is the matters are dealt with in a very private, confidential, intimate manner. And so,
Inspector, forgive me. I heard the stations that you're calling in terms of which division and which station. Is that purposely because of the higher rates in that particular community or area?
No, not necessarily. It is simply because that is where it would have allowed for a particular amount of space to have like a special interview room for the victim, because some of the stations, some of the newer stations are built with certain capacity. Some of them are built where you can actually hold someone, they keep someone there, for an overnight, because perhaps at the point in time the police may not be able to get a safe house readily available at 2 a.m. in the morning or something like that. So
this is apart from a holding cell, like where
no, it's not a holding cell.
No, as I say, it's apart from that.
Yes.
There's another space.
Yes, like a room with a shower and it's a room. It's like, so the new stations are outfitted like that. So they try to place as far as possible the gender-based or even the child protection, because both of them fall under the same umbrella, where you have that kind of facility. So it is really geared with that in mind, so that, because remember, sometimes you get a call and the person is actually in imminent danger, and you may call a safe house and you're still trying to network to get that thing, but the person is in a particular state, and so as they work with us, we try to.
Can you walk us through the process? If somebody calls and says that they're in a situation of domestic violence, or they walk in a station to report domestic violence, what's the process that happens?
Okay, so a report of a domestic violence can be physical, emotional, sexual, financial. Abuse is in any regard, right? Most cases we look at it as the physical aspect, because that's what we see visually. So let us say, for example, it is a physical abuse, right? That kind of matter. And the person comes to the station. They may go to a Rima police station, for example, to make the report. And the Rima police station, knowing the sensitivity of the matter, will direct and communicate with gender-based violence at the Maloney police station to let them know that we have a report of this. The officers at Rima may not necessarily go into detail to find out all the intimates about it. The person, of course, if they need medical attention and that kind of thing, they'll be taken by the police to be medically examined, depending on the matter.
Right.
If it's a matter that involves sexual penetration or rape, because it can happen between partners, right? Then you would need a DMO to look into that matter and that kind of thing. So when the report is made, the police would be there with the person, take the report, all the details, statement as far as possible. If you can record the statement at that time, it's the best thing. Depending on the time of the night or the time of the day, the officer may not take the statement at that particular time. But, the next morning, the statement would be taken.
Right.
Of course, if the person has children and that kind of thing, we have to take that into context in terms of safety of all the parties. Further to that now, the police will also see counseling through the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service Victim and Witness Support Unit, which is available to all. So even though let's say and I speak because of most of the matters are female, being the victims. Let's say in this case, the victim is the mother. She would receive counseling, the children will receive counseling as well. Because a lot of times in these matters, other members in the household see what is happening. They would see it then and they would have seen it on previous occasions. So we offer counseling to members of the household and whoever else that the victim would, inform us of. We would ensure that they get that type of counseling. Yeah, so basically that is how it goes, and then it goes from step to step in relation to gathering evidence. Some may be scientific data, some may be evidence, and some may not. Some may be through video footage. If we have that, we would use it. And of course, other medical evidence and other things of evidential value that we would collate.
I mean, I appreciate all of the things that you said there in that step. I think I'm curious as to at what point do we speak to the perpetrator?
Okay, so the police will gather evidence. We will gather the evidence. So, for example, in a case where, in recent time we've had matters where the perpetrators in these cases recently have actually come forward. And the police actually, so the police will have that person in custody. And so that's a team, that's one team, and then there's another team that is with the victim, getting the evidence out, because you have to have the evidence to be able to
charge them,
to charge a person. So you must gather that evidence, at least sufficient, because the matter could continue even with the initial, but you must get that level of evidence before you can even present anything to the alleged suspect or perpetrator.
And do we have any support in place for, you said there's counseling for the victims, there's counseling for the family members. That person who's perpetrating, they need the most counseling, I think.
Well, so the counseling, throughout the service there is counseling. Notwithstanding, for example, as we know, sometimes somebody goes before a magistrate, and the magistrate would actually direct the person to go to St. Anne's institution to get
psychiatric evaluation.
So that depending on what it is, there's counseling, and there is afforded to persons regardless of what side of the spectrum that you fall in relation to your mental ability. It doesn't take away from what is taking place. Everything would be taken in context. Yes.
Now, Ms. Lewis, going back to the evidence, I was reading somewhere, because of course we have heard instances where the women are abused, but they're afraid to come forward or they're afraid to press charges. I was reading somewhere where eventually the police would need the account of the wife or the account of the spouse to press charges, and after the police do their investigation, they'll be able to use whatever evidence they gather to press charges. Do we have that locally here?
We still need the evidence at this time. As far as I'm aware, you still need the support of the
spouse or the victim.
The victim,
right?
But we've had circumstances or instances where, for example, we would have received statements from victims, and subsequently they say, "Well, officer, I don't want to."
Yes, they don't want to press charges.
But then we already have that statement, so that statement can go into evidence because we already have that statement, right?
Right.
In that case, and of course, if you have the medical and that kind of thing, right? But what you find happening a lot of times with domestic matters is that because the persons know each other for a period of time, emotions sometimes get the better of, do I want to charge this person? Do I want my children to see it? Do I want, to go through all of that? It's also where you have to separate your life from what you are accustomed doing and knowing, and putting yourself in isolation when you go into a safe house. And sometimes, a lot of times, women don't want to do that, even though in the long run it could save your life. They really don't want, because it's a separation from it. You cannot have the normal visits or going as you would like, but it's for your best interest.
How long would they have to be in that situation for then?
It depends on the situation, and it really depends on the severity of the matter that is before the police in relation to the safe house. And they go as far as finding employment for that person if they're there for a long period of time, ensuring that they fall back into a life that they can sustain themselves of independence, even though they're in a safe house. So they're taken to an area separate and apart to get themselves back on track.
It's almost like a restart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they would be in isolation for quite a period of time before. And when they have court, the police would take that person in an unmarked police vehicle to take them to court.
Now, when you say isolation, Inspector, isolation in terms of I can't speak to my family, I can't speak to my grandmother, like how isolated are you?
Right, so it will include that because sometimes, even though you have family members, they talk. So your cell phone, you know, people talk.
So no cell phones?
Well, so it depends on the magnitude. So no cell phones because remember, I am human nature you're treating with, right? So I'm in a safe house, my spouse or whoever the case might be, right? And so I am calling my girlfriend and tell my girlfriend the whole story, and I tell her, well, you know, when I was driving here, I passed so and so, I passed so and so. You know where we're in? And you go and telling your girlfriend every single thing, you're no longer safe.
Yeah.
So yeah, we have to consider your safety and the safety of the children when we place you. Otherwise, you're putting other women and children in that safe house at risk.
At risk as well. I want to jump across before we wrap up this morning, Inspector, about restraining orders, because we've seen oftentimes where somebody has acquired a restraining order against another person, and unfortunately, for whatever reason, they still end up communicating with that person. They still end up sometimes dead at the hands of the same person who they have a restraining order against. How effective are restraining orders?
The police encourage persons, whether it's male or female, to maintain what the restraining order, protection order says. If it says no contact, if it says to stay away for a particular period of distance and that kind of thing, no communication via third party, otherwise maintain it. Because what happens is that when a party, both parties have it, right? At the beginning, they hold up to it. But then the female starts to communicate with the male, and then she starts to relax on the situation, and then he realizes that, okay, it's okay, and then before you know it, something happens. And then she remembers she has this restraining order, and she throws it back into his face and says, well, we have this, and then the police, of course, will enter into that situation, because once you have a protection order, restraining order, right, that's immediate arrest. Once you breach that order, it's immediate arrest.
Okay.
So the man now is looking at, but all the time you were talking and he didn't, and sometimes that aggravates the situation.
Even
sometimes
more. Yeah.
So we admonish women, and I'm saying women because most of the reports come from that side. You have a restraining order, follow through with it.
Now, when you say instant arrest, Inspector, how long? Because I feel like sometimes they could be arrested and then as soon as they get back out, they go back to that same woman again.
They go back to the same woman again?
Yeah. So you arrest them. How long is the arrest period for? If the person breaches the protection order, how long are they arrested for?
So, okay, so you breach the order, someone breaches the order, the police will have a copy of the order either in the station district, or the victim would have a copy presented to the police knows it, sees it, it's authentic, and they act on it. They arrest the person will go before the court.
There's a process, okay.
And you breach, right? So the magistrate would say, all right, you breached the order, and this is the penalty for it as the case may be. Right?
What is the maximum penalty? Is it years? Is it months? How long?
No, the court determines. It's not like years because it's a breach of the order.
Right.
So it's not like years. It's just for a short period of time, and then the person would return. But of course, if the person continues to breach the order, the magistrate will take that into consideration and impose something higher. But we always encourage the parties who have the protection order to maintain it. If you do your part and not encourage the other side, we will not. It will have less.
Less problems in general.
Less problems.
But Inspector, you keep mentioning that mostly women report domestic violence situations. How do we get men to feel more comfortable to report if they are in those situations?
One of the reasons why the gender-based violence unit was set up is for that reason. It didn't say male or female, it says gender. And so the training that the officers receive is to get that openness and that allow the officer, the male or female victim to come to the police officer and not feel, stereotyped or that,
not
being mocked up. Right. So that's why we say when you make the report at the station district, you go directly. The police would ensure that you go to the specialist unit that would treat with that. So that person who the male person is speaking to is trained. Right. So he might be talking to a male officer, he might be talking to a female officer. Regardless, the treatment would be the same, whether it's a male or female victim, because the officers there have that special training. You know, for this year, we have 7 persons who died as a result of domestic violence, domestic violence related murder. And the figure is comparatively the same as last year. And within that figure, we have, I can tell you, for male, and so when we record the figures for CAPA, we look at intimate and non-intimate. Yeah. And intimate would be for those who live together. Non-intimate would be for those who are not living together and probably separate for about a year or so. Right? So when we look at that figure, for 2021, for intimate, we had in male 1, and non-intimate 3. This is domestic violence related murder, right? Right. For female intimate, we had 3. And in male we had, and in non-intimate we had 0. So total intimate for 2021 was 4, and total non-intimate for 2021 was 3. So we had 7 last year. And you're back at the same number and again this year. The only one that has not been
the same in terms of intimate and non-intimate.
So for 2022, the intimate in male was 3, and the non-intimate was 2. And in female, intimate was 2, and the non-intimate was 5.
5, yeah.
Just quickly, Inspector, when you say male and female, you're talking about the victims?
The victim, yes. Okay, the person who...
Well, I mean, I think we have a lot more to discuss in this, and I thank you for coming back here every single Monday and discussing it with us, and we look forward to more conversation with you. Unfortunately, we have to take a commercial break right now. But when we come back, we're going to continue our conversation in and around everything to do with domestic violence and how it affects us as a people, as a nation, as individuals. We take a quick break and come back with more. Thank you so much, Inspector Lewis.
Most welcome. Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Trinidad and Tobago, get ready for the ultimate musical experience. Saturday, June 4th, the Waterfront, Hyatt Regency Trinidad, Suite 100.1 FM brings to you Jazz. A fusion of our music and culture. Introducing performances by Pedro Lazama, Joshua Regrello, Nyla Blackman, and Soca. Sharada Pattisar with a tribute to her father, Mungel Pattisar. Introducing Adrian Kong, called Beba Henderson, featuring Kay Allen and Mauricia Kagan. Freetown Collective, Patrice Roberts and the A-Team Band. The Boss, King David Rudder. And the Queen of Bacchanal, Destra. Limited advance tickets now, $500. Premium drinks inclusive. Dress code, you must wear white. To purchase tickets, log on to www.islandetickets.com. No credit card, no worries. Stay tuned to Suite 100 and follow us on Facebook and Instagram for ticket outlet details. Jazz, a fusion of our music and culture, brought to you by the #1 adult contemporary station in Trinidad and Tobago. Suite 100, powered by Digicel. Digicel, better together. Udicott, signed, sealed, delivered. And the TDT Limited Media Network. This is Jazz.
Herbs have been around ever since the evolution of mankind. Ancient civilizations, Babylonia, Mesopotamia, Greece, India, all record in the hieroglyphics the use of herbs. Wars have been fought, romances blossomed, trade routes established through herbs and spices.
Pharmacists created a bridge between the systems. They were the ones that the average person would go to before they went to a private doctor, before they went to the hospital. So the pharmacist would diagnose and prescribe sometimes even treat. And so they wouldn't have to move it fully into this other tradition that they didn't really trust.
One day I met an old woman selling, and I wanted something to eat. I say I was going to put a bit in she way, but I take back when...
Welcome back inside the Now Morning Show. If it's your birthday today, I want to say happiest of birthdays to you, and I hope that you do enjoy it to the absolute fullest. Let me start by saying happy birthday to our colleague, co-worker, and he works with Ayanka every morning from 9 to 12 on Next 99.1 FM. Trotty is celebrating his birthday today. Happy birthday to you, Trotty. I hope that you have yourself a great day today.
Happy birthday, Trotty. Ooh, that's a dapper picture. Very nice.
Yeah, man. Trotty's a dapper Dan. I don't understand. Trotty,
happy birthday,
rum punch on you today. Also, I want to say happy birthday to my cousin Nadia Tyner. She celebrates her birthday today as well. Nadia, happiest of birthdays to you. And also, happy birthday going on to Miss Anya Seeley. She actually is representing Trinidad and Tobago, playing hockey for us internationally. So, Anya, happy nice birthday to you. I hope that you have a great day, darling, and you enjoy it to the max.
I do have some birthdays. So, first of all, let me wish a happy belated birthday to one of my schoolmates, Christian Digans. He celebrated his birthday yesterday. Happy belated birthday to you, Christian. Let me wish a happy birthday today to one of my ex-co-workers. In a previous life, I used to be a flight attendant.
A previous life? How many lives have you lived?
and one of my ex-co-workers, his birthday is today, Rajesh Ramlal. So happy birthday to you, Rajesh. Rajesh is always zooming all over the world. So I'm not sure if he's in Trinidad, but wherever you are, have a happy
birthday. Christian is Billet Christian?
Yes.
Oh,
Bilting.
Right.
Yes.
Bilting. Christian, big up yourself, brother. The guys have happy belated birthday. I didn't realize yesterday was his birthday. I didn't go on social media at all yesterday.
And Rockers also. So this is not a happy birthday, but this is a good morning. So my Rotary Club, Central Port of Spain, Rotary Club of Central Port of Spain, we had our Choker Fest, which is like our flagship event.
Yes.
And I was in the middle of an interview, and a woman ran to me. She said, "Yo, Kimberly, this Susan right?" I said, "Yes." She said, "I watch you and Rockers every morning." Right? Yeah, right? So she said that I watch you and Rockers every single morning, and there they are.
Oh.
So I told them I'll give them a big morning, a good morning. So this is Marilyn Shanona, Pat, Jem, Carol, Promella, and Christine. And they told me specifically to say to Rockers that we love you. Okay?
Oh, gosh, I love all you too.
So good morning, ladies. And I did deliver the message. So please don't kill the messenger. But that's how we're going to wrap things. Of course, if you are celebrating a birthday today, happy birthday to you. You're on the Now Morning Show. We're going to take a break and be right back. Stay with us.
One love in the camp, according to Trotty.
I will make food security a reality.
I will design groundbreaking prototypes.
I will create the next life-saving vaccine.
Whatever your career aspirations, the University of the West Indies St. Augustine campus is where tomorrow's game changers begin their journey. With fully accredited programs across 8 faculties, our graduates are innovating regionally and impacting globally. See what it's like to be UE. Visit sta.uwi.edu/apply.
The best laptops and tablets are at dbesttoys.com. Get an Evo 11.6-inch ultra-thin notebook, a Gateway 11.6-inch FHD ultra-slim notebook, a Gateway 14.1-inch ultra-slim notebook, a Gateway 11.6-inch 2-in-1 convertible notebook, or an HP 14-inch laptop at the best prices in TNT. Get the Fire 7 tablet for $474. We also carry Fire HD 8 tablet, Fire HD 10 tablet, and the Amazon Kids Edition 7, 8, and 10-inch tabs. You can also shop the latest Amazon Fire Sticks. Call now at 32-DBEST to order, or visit us in-store at Forces flagship MacBean. Shop online now at dbesttoys.com. Free delivery available throughout Trinidad and Tobago. Cash or links on delivery. The best deals on laptops and tablets are at dbesttoys.com.
Herbs have been around ever since the evolution of mankind. Ancient civilizations, Babylonia, Mesopotamia, Greece, India, all record in the hieroglyphics the use of herbs. Wars have been fought, romances blossomed, trade routes established through herbs and spices.
Pharmacists created a bridge between the systems. They were the ones that the average person would go to before they went to a private doctor, before they went to the hospital. So the pharmacist would diagnose and prescribe, sometimes even treat. And so they wouldn't have to move it fully into this other tradition that they didn't really trust.
One day I met an old woman selling, and I wanted something to eat. I say I was going to put a bit in she way, but I take back when...
The Division of Education, Innovation and Energy's e-learning program for primary and secondary school students resumes. Tune in daily to stay on top of your studies. Lectures designed to guide you so that you keep up with your subjects. Also, for supplemental lessons and worksheets, visit our interactive website at www.thadeie.gov.tt.
Between 24, 25 when I went to the shelter, I had bruises, blue, black marks everywhere that I got beaten with a water hose. I mean, I was down on a stairs, on the bottom of a stairs with my neck like that, just not taking the poison down. And you know what I said? If I die, he would go to jail, the same thing, and my child will suffer. But I saw death in that house. I used to be talking to a social worker, and she referred me to the shelter, and she gave me 2 bus tickets, and she said, close the door behind you. I went down by the bus station, I got the bus. I said, God is with me, and I held my son's hand, and we ran up that road. And the girls, and they were so welcoming. And they took me in and nurtured me. They nurtured me. They fed me. They nursed me. They clothed me. Everything. I stayed there for 6 months. And I was hard.
Well, that sets the tone for the conversation we're about to have. The shelter, a safe haven, a safe place for women to go to in situations of domestic violence. We have with us this morning executive member of the shelter, Ms. Shireen Pollard. Good morning to you. Welcome to the Now Morning Show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
First of all, let's get a little bit of history on the shelter. How long has it been in existence, and what's the kind of work that you guys do?
Sure. It was opened in 1987, actually, by Miss Diana Mahabir Wyatt. Our current chairman is Mr. Colin Mitchell. We can hold up to 20 residents. Our residents are allowed to stay at the shelter with us for periods of 3 months up to 9 months. So within that time, they receive counseling, they receive social interventions to address the behaviors and the issues that cause them to come to the shelter.
Interesting. I mean,
that part of it too, really, because you say the behaviors that cause them to come to the shelter.
Well, I shouldn't, not the behaviors that they engage in, but the behaviors that
would have affected them.
That would have affected them to cause them to come to the shelter.
I mean, my next question would have been, what kind of behaviors do you usually see? Or, for example,
From
what kind of victims are coming? Coming to the shelter.
Well, we receive a variety of victims because domestic violence can be in several forms. So we receive victims who may have been victims of physical violence, maybe financial abuse, psychological abuse. So there are many different forms of domestic violence that may cause someone to have to come to our shelter.
And is the time period you're talking about, 3 months to 9 months, has that been effective, that we don't see people end up relapsing or ended up back in situations that they don't want to be in?
We have. If we understand the victimology as it relates to domestic violence, we see that victims, sometimes it takes them 7 times to leave and go back before they leave for good. Wow. So we have had in the past, we've had victims who were probably at the shelter before, and because we understand that victimology, we encourage them to come back every single time that they need to.
Now, in terms of the services that you offer, is it that you offer counseling services, rehab services? I mean, how far is it? Is it as far as trying to get them a job when they get back on their feet, sort of thing?
Yes, absolutely. So they receive crisis intervention when they first come to the shelter, because as you know, leaving a home, even if you're leaving a home by yourself or leaving a home with children, that in itself is traumatic. So they receive a series of crisis interventions, and then what we do is we create individualized case plans for each resident. Okay. Because some residents, their needs may be different than others. You know, some people may have underlying factors, you know, mental health issues, they may need life skills. We work with a lot of ministries actually in ensuring that our residents receive the services that they need. So we may have to collaborate with the Ministry of Education because we may need to change a school for a child to go to. The Ministry of Social Development and Family Services, where we may look at ensuring that our residents receive grants to help them. One of the things that we are actually actively working on now is partnering with Ministry of Housing and hoping that our residents can receive some kind of permanent housing once they leave the shelter.
What about security at the shelter? Like, how do you mitigate people, the perpetrators coming to find them at the shelter or whatever the case may be?
Well, it's a confidential location. Right. So we have very specific drivers that take residents to the shelter. While they're at the shelter, unfortunately, you know, we take away things like maybe cell phones, just also because we want them to focus on the treatment that they're receiving while at the shelter. So confidentiality is very, very important, and our staff understands that. So that's how we really try to keep that.
Nice.
I wonder if after the treatment is done, you know, you give back your cell phone, you get back access to social media, you get back access to all the people you used to have access to. Does that help or hurt the process?
Well, I think it depends on the individual. So they receive skills where, you know, they understand that they need to be empowered, and maybe, you know, they need to focus on themselves and focus on their children, and I think that really helps them kind of stay in a bubble and work on themselves. Yeah.
So it creates a bubble for them.
Yes,
creates a bubble. Now, in terms of the children, some women are allowed to come with their children to the shelter. Yes, of course. Do you have specific services to offer the children while they're staying there at that point?
Well, we want to make sure we don't disrupt the children's lives as much as it's already been disrupted. So now that, you know, we really haven't had this issue because of COVID and school was closed, and now that schools are reopened, what we want to do is we want to make sure that there are things in place where the children can continue to go to school, where they can continue to, they can also receive counseling, because, you know, we say a lot of time domestic violence, it doesn't just affect the woman, it affects the children as well. So the emotions that they're experiencing, just based on what their experience, is very important for them to.
Are there common factors that you guys would have encountered in dealing with the victims of domestic violence?
I wouldn't say that they're common factors, because domestic violence can happen to anyone. Right. So what we see is we see residents coming from all over the country, from all different walks of life. So I really won't say that there's a common factor.
Are there men available, like, who come to the shelter seeking your assistance?
For now, we only accept women and children. Yeah.
I mean, Ruckus and I were talking earlier about the fact that one of the things that would have caused the increase in domestic violence, and this was global, was the COVID-19 pandemic.
Absolutely.
And so is there a peak period where you would see more people coming to the shelter than others?
Yes and no, only because the shelter went through a very big renovation during the COVID, so we weren't actually open for COVID. Wow. So we weren't able to compare, you know, statistics from pre-COVID to post-COVID. Yeah. But I just think nationally we have seen an increase in domestic violence complaints during COVID.
But in terms of, so now that we have like more cases being reported and we're seeing the incidents in the newspaper, would you find more women wanting to get out of that situation and find a shelter for themselves?
Absolutely, and we encourage that. We know it's a very difficult thing. It's a life-changing thing, you know. It's very difficult to go into the unknown. You're not sure, you know, you're leaving your home, you're disrupting your children's lives. But what we really do is try to provide a safe space where they feel comfortable, where they don't feel like they have to go back into a situation that is dangerous and potentially fatal.
You said that you have space for 20 people.
20 residents, correct.
At the shelter. What happens when you're filled to capacity?
When we are filled, well, unfortunately, we can't take anyone else. So what we do is we try to make sure services are in place and women receive the skills that they can get so we can discharge them and have other residents come in. But there are also other shelters throughout Trinidad that, you know,
so
even if we're filled
together to be able to say, well, all right, I can recommend that you, we can't take you, but I can recommend that you go by X or you go by Y.
Absolutely. And what Trinidad has an 800 national domestic violence hotline. It's 800-SAVE. So we do, if we're unable to facilitate a resident coming into our shelter, we encourage them to call this number, and that number would put them to, you know, probably connect them to the gender-based violence unit of the TTPS or to another shelter within Trinidad.
Now, when the victim leaves the shelter, are there any check-in services that you do to ensure that they stay on track with the plan that you would have created for them?
Yes, absolutely. So the shelter, one thing about the shelter, we are available whenever you need. So even if you're not staying with us as a resident and you feel like you need services, or maybe you just need items or you need someone to speak to, we are definitely available.
In terms of the resources that are available, because in most instances of domestic violence, the men would have been the breadwinner, and so they're coming there, maybe they're strapped for finances. Do you help in that aspect as well?
That is actually a real concern, so thank you. It's not that we provide monetary, I guess, value, money or cash, but what we do is we try to empower the women to get a job or to find a job or to just hone in on the skills that they have
while they're at the shelter.
Right. Or when they're leaving. Because what we don't want is we don't want someone to go into a relationship just for, you know, financial means, and then they're at the hands of an abuser and or perpetrator, correct. So as much as we could empower women to be independent, I think that, and earn money on their own, I think that is definitely a barrier in becoming, you know, a domestic violence victim.
I'm still concerned about the security aspect of things because, you know, when even if you say, all right, you're going to empower somebody to get a job, how do you get a job in a place that you know you're not going to bounce up the perpetrator by accident, or how do you mitigate those factors?
Well, these are things we look at the case-to-case basis, right? So we know maybe if someone is living in San Fernando and the perpetrator is known to be in San Fernando or live in San Fernando, maybe we'll look at trying to find permanent housing for them, I don't know, maybe in Arima or in Port of Spain or something like that. So it really is to try to cut as much ties as possible to the abusive situation that they were in.
Now, Ms. Pollard, where is the shelter located? And for any woman who's
watching,
I was going to say
the question is, for any woman who's looking right now and they want to get the services of the shelter, where can they, is there a number to call, a website or anything?
We do not have I don't have a public number that I can give out, but we can, they can actually send an email to admin@trinidadshelter.com. They can also call 800-SAVE, which is a national domestic violence hotline that is run by OPM's Child and Gender Affairs, and they can ask for more information on the shelter. So again, that number is 800-SAVE.
And it's admin@trinidadshelter.com?
Correct.
So they can send an email there requesting your services or
just information. Even if you give a contact number with a good time that you would like for us to call you, we would call you right back.
All right. And 800-SAVE is a toll-free hotline that you can call at any point in time.
Absolutely.
24/7.
24/7, and anyone can call.
All right. This is, I mean, we know that it's a lot to unpack. Are there any plans, or do you know of any safe houses, any shelters, not the shelter, but any other shelters that facilitate men?
Not that I'm aware of right now. Currently, I know that the Office of the Prime Minister and Child and Gender Affairs there have been discussions about opening a domestic violence shelter for male victims.
No, but this is also part of the situation, right?
Yeah.
This is also part of the problem, is that we often only see men as perpetrators and not as victims. And the fact that we don't have anything in place for those men that may be victims is part, I think, of the problem. But
I mean, you know, I think women are victims of domestic violence. You know, the numbers are disproportionate towards women. So I think, you know, resources have been kind of focused where the need has been. But I do understand the need for male victims to have a safe place as well.
How do we deal with perpetrators? How do we I don't want to say fix them, but
so when it comes to perpetrators of domestic violence, one social intervention, and it has been proven to be effective, is batterer's intervention. So this is where, you know, someone who may be a male perpetrator or alleged of committing a domestic violence crime, they go and they receive counseling, they receive any skills to address the behavior, because when we, you know, in domestic violence cases, there are many underlying factors. For some people, it may be substance abuse can lead to domestic violence, mental health issues can lead to domestic violence. So what the batterer's intervention program does is it will address that problem. Even in speaking to male perpetrators, sometimes they may not even know what they're doing, you know, not to make an excuse, but sometimes
they don't know that it's wrong.
They don't know that it's wrong. They may not know that it's wrong, or they may not understand that their behaviors are manipulative. Or so batterer's intervention is something that I think can address the perpetrators. We also could, you know, arrest them and put them into jail because it is a crime.
Yeah,
of course.
I don't know that necessarily helps the situation, but I do understand that it's a form of recourse. I think that, you know, what Inspector Lewis mentioned earlier, you know, it's in terms of getting counseling for both perpetrators and victims as well. I think they're equally important, because something is wrong with you if you think that it's okay to manipulate, to abuse, and whether it be emotionally, physically, or financially.
Well, if you're phically abusing a woman, then, you know, that's a crime. So that's physical assault.
Something is wrong.
The financial part is a crime too, not
so? So I definitely think, you know, for us to treat domestic violence as a crime, I think sends a very strong message nationally, and it's definitely something that I am a proponent of.
Well, I want to thank you so much for joining us and sharing and continue to do the great work that you guys are doing at the shelter.
Thank you for having me.
Of course.
That's Shireen Pollard, executive member at the shelter, just sharing a little bit of information with us. And if you want to get in contact with them, you can send an email to admin@trinidadshelter.com, or you can simply call 800-SAVE. That's 800-7283. We'll take a quick break and come back with more inside the Now Morning Show. Stay tuned.
Herbs have been around ever since the evolution of mankind. Ancient civilizations, Babylonia, Mesopotamia, Greece, India, all record in the hieroglyphics the use of herbs. Wars have been fought, romances blossomed, trade routes established through herbs and spices.
Pharmacists created a bridge between the systems. They were the ones that the average person would go to before they went to a private doctor, before they went to the hospital. So the pharmacist would diagnose and prescribe, sometimes even treat. And so they wouldn't have to move fully into this other tradition that they didn't really trust.
One day I met an old woman selling, and I wanted something to eat. I say I was going to put a bit in she way, but I take back when...
Oh, hi there. Welcome to my shop. This is Jones Repair Shop, and I'm Mr. Jones. In my shop, there's nothing that cannot be fixed. The number one thing that I like to fix are hearts. Can you think about somebody who has heart in your life? Wow, your parents. They have heart, they have an inner strength, right? So, has heart, everyone, means to have an inner strength.
Positivity to me is a way of life. It's a way of being.
I like words.
Tactical.
If I had so much
This place.
outside of the community.
So we know what I'm a young leader.
Music is the healing. Find a new skill to do something.
You want this to be 25% of your meal.
You can go to Olympics too.
Tokyo 2020 became the goal.
And we're going to talk about achieving.
And that was my dream, to get 9 ones.
Out of the word achieve, you're left with ICE. Now everybody could achieve and have.
The Division of Education, Innovation and Energy's e-learning program for primary and secondary school students resumes. Tune in daily to stay on top of your studies. Lectures designed to guide you so that you keep up with your subjects. Also, for supplemental lessons and worksheets, visit our interactive website at www.thadeie.gov.tt.
Welcome back to the Now Morning Show. It's just about 33 minutes after the hour of 7 o'clock on this Monday morning. I'm Kimberly D'Souza. Now, we've often heard that domestic violence has a cyclical pattern of behavior where children who witnessed abuse may express certain tendencies when they get older. And to speak to us more about this topic is the president of the Trinidad and Tobago Association of Psychologists, Mr. Charles J.P. Collier. Mr. Collier, good morning. Thank you so much for joining us on Now.
Good morning, and thank you for having me. Thank you especially, actually, for having this sort of extended, in-depth address of this issue. I really, really appreciate that.
And we appreciate actually you coming to talk to us about this, because we've been hearing that, hurt people. And so I was wondering, children who witness domestic violence at a young age, what sort of tendencies will they normally begin to exhibit? And we can also look at it short-term and long-term.
Okay, so I often steer away from the word witness. I prefer exposed to domestic violence. Reason being that witness tends to suggest that we're talking about visual perception, visual awareness of the domestic violence. They're there and they see it happen, but often that's not the case. In many instances, what happens is that children, first and foremost, hear domestic violence. The inspector who was on earlier addressed the fact that violence occurs in a number of ways. It's not just physical violence. It can also be verbal. It can be emotional. It can be sexual. It can be financial. And so the first awareness of violence may not be an awareness of physical violence. Children may be exposed to the sound of their parents in a loud argument. They may be exposed to hearing one or the other parent or both address each other using language that is not appropriate. They may hear the sounds of physical scuffling or fighting. They may hear the sounds of blows being delivered or things breaking in the house at night. That may be out of view, but that may be their exposure. And in fact, that's much more likely than seeing the physical violence, because physical violence occurs far less frequently than non-physical forms of violence, such as controlling and manipulative behavior, verbal abuse, other kinds of emotional abuse, financial abuse. Those things occur much more frequently than physical violence, and the children may be aware of that first and foremost. And so I prefer to use, therefore, the term exposure to domestic violence. The second thing is that the ways in which children are affected are numerous. They may be confused by what they're hearing. They are almost certainly likely to be afraid. They are, depending on how intense the violence is, depending on how involved it is, how frequent it is, children may find themselves becoming involved. I've worked with a lot of adults who report the experience of intervening in violence between their parents when they were children. And so it's well beyond just visual witnessing. They may become participants in a violent affair.
Now, Mr. Collier, I want to bring in, as we are on the topic, I want to also bring in the ages of the children. So, for example, for a child who experienced or was exposed to domestic violence at the age of 5 versus a teenager who is exposed to it at the age of 16, will it differ in terms of how it affects them and how it actually affects their development?
It can. It depends. It's very variable. One of the issues about domestic violence, one of the reasons that I'm glad that you've had so many different stakeholders on this morning, is it is extremely complicated. And at any given point in time, there's a wide array of possibilities. And so in my experience, work that I've done and research that I've done, we've encountered children who were 2, 3 years old, who were aware of the violence between their parents and had questions about it. They were confused about what was happening and had questions about it. The older children are much more likely to have some clarity about what's happening, partly because they are more developed cognitively, but partly because they may have been exposed to it for a long time. And so they may have seen this going on with their parents, heard it going on with their parents since they were very small. And, you know, some of the teenagers that I've worked with have a certain sort of cavalier response. They joke about the violence as a way of coping with it. When it happens at a very young age, if it's pervasive, meaning if it occurs frequently, if it's inescapable, it can have severe and significant effects on children's development. If a child is traumatized at an early age, it can arrest different parts of their development, including important parts of their emotional and psychological development.
Now, Mr. Collier, how do we move past this then? Because we only have a few minutes and I want to get in so much, but how do we, allow these children to get back on the path of, developing cognitively, developing socially? How do we get them there? Is it as simple as saying, use therapy?
Who has access to therapy, though? One of the issues is that we don't have a good national program that makes access to an address of these issues for children widely available. And so in all likelihood, people who have access to therapy are privileged in a certain sense. And so one of the issues is that if we're talking about our children recovering from and healing from their exposure to domestic violence, then we have to have systems in place. We need to have resources in place in our communities, in our national system of address of domestic violence. That has to be an intentional and well-resourced part of our program.
Now, in the absence of therapy, Mr. Collier, is then the response to it bringing these types of resources in school? Because I'm wondering what part education has to play with all of this.
When you say education, you mean the formal educational system.
Yes.
And that is an avenue. It is technically possible to provide support, training, education, specifically about the practice of nonviolence in relationships in schools. There are programs that have been developed for that purpose that can be adapted and implemented. I think there have been efforts to introduce that before, but we may not have been quite ready at a national level to face that. part of our struggle is that, we're talking about victims of domestic violence, witnesses of domestic violence, perpetrators of domestic violence. What we're not talking about is the fact that this is a national societal issue. It's not just the individuals who end up in the news because somebody has been injured or killed. That those are the tip of the iceberg. They're horrifying instances and circumstances, but there are a lot of things that lead to and facilitate those individual events occurring. And so there's a need for us as a society to assess what we are doing. What are we doing that is lending room for the perpetration of domestic violence? What are we doing that facilitates that? What are our cultural scripts and practices and beliefs that allow that? So for example, people will say things like, that's husband and wife business. And so there is a hands-off kind of policy with the address of domestic violence. And there's a need for a national conversation. There's a need for national engagement, which I'm going to circle back. You asked about education, and you were talking about the formal educational system for children. Yes. But I think that there's a need for an educational system for us as a nation. I think that there needs to be a widespread program of public education about domestic violence, because it's very difficult. Well, let me put it this way. If we think of this in terms of what we do with the children and not what we as adults, as a nation do, then we place the burden of this incredibly difficult problem on children.
Mr. Collier, finally, as we look forward to addressing this problem with children, I know you mentioned the lack of resources available in terms of therapy, but how else can we, protect our children from these instances of, this exposure to domestic violence?
That's exactly why I'm talking about public education, because there has to be a change in our perspective, our view, and our response as a society. If as a society we don't respond to domestic violence, then as a society we leave children to be exposed to it. And so there has to be a shift that occurs in terms of our national consciousness, awareness, and understanding of domestic violence. Our attitudes and beliefs and response to it have to shift in order to protect our children. We can't protect them independently of our own change as a society.
Mr. Collier, as always, thank you so much for joining us here on the Now Morning Show. I know we've just scratched the surface, but as these things happen, we will be having you back again just to continue to have these conversations. So thank you for spending at least 10 to 15 minutes of your morning with us.
Thank you.
And that was Mr. Collier. Mr. Collier is the president of the Trinidad and Tobago Association of Psychologists, just sharing with us, how we can help children who have been exposed to domestic violence incidences in the home. Here on the Now Morning Show, we're going to take a break and be right back. Stay with us.
Herbs have been around ever since the evolution of mankind. Ancient civilizations, Babylonia, Mesopotamia, Greece, India, all record in the hieroglyphics the use of herbs. Wars have been fought, romances blossomed, trade routes established through herbs and spices.
Pharmacists created a bridge between the systems. They were the ones that the average person would go to before they went to a private doctor, before they went to the hospital. So the pharmacist would diagnose and prescribe, sometimes even treat. And so they wouldn't have to move it fully into this other tradition that they didn't really trust.
One day I met an old woman selling, and I wanted something to eat. I say I was going to put a bit in she way, but I take back when...
The Mother Church of the Anglican Diocese suffered significant damage during the earthquake of 2018. Efforts are underway to raise funds to restore this national heritage site. You are invited to make your donations with monthly deposits at any branch of the First Citizens Bank, account number 2696950, Marval Road Branch, in the name of the Incorporated Trustees of the Anglican Holy Trinity Cathedral Restoration.
My wife betrayed me.
But my husband did not betray me.
The question is, why did she do that with me?
The question is, did this even happen?
Both were holding each other's hand while dying.
But was that true or not?
One incident, two strangers. The story is of Aditya and Zoya. Fepana.
You are dearer to me than all the stars. So many wish but never reach. 'Cause when I'm falling and all the world seems dark, you help me find my peace. Oh, shun mi ba fishani. Oh, shun mi ba yeah. Oh, shun mi ba fishani. Arubita, yeah 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 yeah.
Welcome back inside the Now Morning Show, The Art of Guitar. It's on this weekend at Queen's Hall, featuring Mr. Stefan Roach, and he's here with us in studio. Good morning to you, sir.
Morning.
How are you doing this morning?
Very good. Thanks for having me.
Well, I see that Superstar video. That's the promo there. They pick up the guitar and the crowd went wild.
Yeah.
Stefan, how long have you been playing guitar?
I've been playing guitar about 22 years.
22 years.
Yeah, that's when I started formally studying guitar, I would say.
I think that you're one of the people I'm certain has put in your 10,000 hours to be able to get to your level of mastery, right? But tell me about this show this weekend, The Art of Guitar. What makes the show so special?
Well, it's a unique show in that it puts the guitar on a platform, right? But it presents a different side to the guitar. You know, we are accustomed to seeing the electric guitar and so on, and but this is mainly the acoustic guitar, the classical guitar, but used in so many ways because we have a diversity of performers on the cast, and it's all done through collaborations. And a lot of people know me for world music, but you know, flamenco, Latin, but in this show, we're entering a lot of different styles. You know,
but you're still bringing the flamenco on things.
Yes,
because I think
people
that
expect that.
I can't lie. Like I went to Spain once, right, and I encountered flamenco for the very first time there, and I was blown away by just the ability to play it. Like what you're doing, the count, it was all just blowing my mind at the same time. Yeah. And then I come home and meet you, and you were doing it. You, Nigel Rojas, there are very few guitarists I've encountered who can actually do it as good as the people in Spain. But how long did it take you to be able to master something like that?
Well, I'll be honest. I wouldn't say I have mastered flamenco at all. You know, it's like foreigners saying they master soca.
Right. Okay.
You know.
Okay.
I can't say I master flamenco. Flamenco is a whole culture that has so many styles depending on which part of Spain. Spain is a huge area, and he's talking about cultural art forms that have been passed on for generations, and this is something that is deep in their soul and their culture and history.
But the guitar is also something that we've passed on for generations through the form of kaiso and calypso. Yeah. We having any of that in the show as well?
Well, well, actually, so I compose original music too, and it's a unique flavor of music because, of course, I'm born in Trinidad, and I grew up here, but I love Spanish guitar. So you find that a couple of my instrumentals actually have the kaiso flavor in it, and with the Spanish lines.
Is that important to you when you're composing, that make sure that you have that Trinbagonian roots in it?
Well, some of them happen like that naturally, and I like that because it's a unique flavor. I'm bringing something new to the table,
right?
And you know, coincidentally enough, I brought the pan in on the last original I released, Kaiser Romance, and Johan Chakris on that one.
So we can expect to see him in the show this weekend?
Yes.
All right. Who else is in the show this weekend?
We have singers, instrumentalists, dancers. The singers are Leandra, Nicola James, and Wendy Shepherd.
Nice.
The dancers, we have Maria Davis, Katie C, Gia Lauren.
Okay. Gia Lauren is okay.
Yeah, I know. That's why she works here.
And how much are the tickets?
Nalini Akal.
Yeah.
The tickets are $250 and $300.
Okay.
At Queen's Hall.
And you can get the tickets where?
Queen's Hall box office or online, the Queen's Hall website, or you can go straight to my website. My website links to the different shows. StefanRoach.com, StefanRoach.com.
And you're performing with, I know you have a small band that you often use.
Yeah.
So these guys are still going to be back in here with Reese.
And how could I not mention these instrumentalists? Because Reese on percussions,
right.
Aaron on bass, but not only that, we have Madupe joining us to bolster that percussive department, and then we have a cellist and a violinist, Chelsea Fenson, and Abigail Cooper.
Is this a difficult
and a tabla player.
Is this a difficult road to walk in terms of not doing the traditional kaiso and soca music?
No, I think I'm offering something different, and you know that's what makes Trinidad special, and that's around every corner has something unique, different, and you know we are a melting pot of so much talent, and that's what really makes Trinidad so special.
All right, guys. Well, you can get your tickets for the Art of Guitar. It's happening this weekend at Queen's Hall. Stefan Roach and friends and collaborators and company. And this is where we're going to sign off for this morning. Stefan, if you don't mind, you just take us to the top with a little Spanish guitar. And I want to remind each and every one of you to go out there and make a difference today now, because together we aspire. Together we achieve. On behalf of Kimberly D'Souza, my name is Rokas. Enjoy the rest of your Monday. Be safe, wash your hands, wear your mask, walk with your umbrella. Stefan, take us to the top.
Group is attuned to changes in our operating environment, both actual and potential, and we have been responding expeditiously with rigor to secure our organization and business interests against those changes. Some change we have had to protect against, some we have had to lean into, but we are evolving as we must, with positive results to date.
TTNGL posted a strong performance for the year ended December 2021. Despite another challenging year, the company recorded an after-tax profit of 512.8 million TT dollars compared to 6.4 million in 2020. And of course, this translated into earnings per share of $3.31 where when we look at the figure in 2020, it was just 4 cents. This improvement was driven by and large by a 366.2% uplift in its share of profit from PPGPL and an impairment reversal of $302.1 million coming out of the 2021 impairment assessment. The pandemic, COP26, Russia-Ukraine war, these have significant implications for our businesses and the strategies we must implement to ensure our resilience and success moving forward. In fact, you add technology to this and you have a significant disruptive environment in which we need to survive. The success of TTNGL is tied to the success of the wider NGC group to which it belongs. TTNGL's future outlook is therefore linked from the growth strategy of the group, and it's important that we spend a few minutes here. The global and domestic context I have shared with you is shaping the growth trajectory for NGC and its subsidiaries. The upheavals of the past 2 years underscore the importance of having a diverse revenue stream, and this is one of the priorities of the group. NGC has been deepening its participation along the value chain through upstream and downstream investment and partnerships. The company now manages an expanded energy marketing and trading portfolio and is scanning for additional opportunities in this space. The group is also growing its international presence. NGC has been working to deliver its first international project in Ghana, monetizing its expertise in gas-based development. Subsidiary National Energy opened an office in Guyana in 2019, and PPGPL, as you know, has acquired 2 NGL assets in North America. Alongside its vision to become a global player, which I think it is, the NGC Group is intent on transitioning into a cleaner energy brand. This is a direct response to climate change imperatives and movements in global energy markets towards greener energy options. The group today has a bold and expanding portfolio of green agenda initiatives. These include investment in solar energy, green hydrogen and its value chain, biofuels, energy efficiency, carbon capture and utilization, carbon offset mechanisms, methane emission reductions, and clean energy education. Carry Green is a site that we have where if you want to find out anything that is going on in the Caribbean about clean energy, you go on that site. The group is also working to build sustainability across other sectors such as agriculture and the creative industry through its corporate social investments. As the group portfolio and balance sheet grows, so too does the value of the TTNGL business to its owners. Based on TTNGL's 2021 performance, shareholders would have accessed a cumulative dividend of 75 cents, which is a major improvement over the 2020 TT5 cents payment. It should be clear that PPGPL and the NGC Group are working hard to deliver progressively better results and ultimately boost the returns to the people of Trinidad and Tobago.
Welcome to TTT News. I am Roxanne Suraj, making the news at this time. Another Trinidad artist is dead. The incident occurred in Tobago, taking the island's murder toll for this year so far to 3. According to reports, Nkosi Bovel, also known as Faridan, was seated at the Dutch Fort Restaurant and Bar in Scarborough when 2 gunmen approached from the back. He was shot multiple times and reportedly died at the scene. The incident occurred sometime before 11 p.m. Bovel's murder comes on the heels of Chief Secretary Farley Augustine's decision to convene a meeting with national security heads in Tobago after being troubled by the increase in criminal activities on the island. Chief Secretary Farley Augustine, concerned by the upsurge in robberies in Tobago, called a meeting with representatives of all security agencies on Friday. Speaking with the media, Mr. Augustine stressed every robbery in Tobago is a major concern.
I am not satisfied, nor am I convinced that enough is being done to stem what seems to be a very troubling trend when it comes to robberies. I am also aware, having spoken to the police, that they are having some conversations with private security companies on the island. Because if you notice, the targets have been our credit unions and have been places guarded by these private security companies.
Chief Secretary Augustine said in addition to the police, fire service, prison service and Coast Guard, representatives from Tobago Emergency Management Agency and the Port and Airport Authority were also invited. He added that though national security is not a function of the Tobago House of Assembly, they are making efforts to address the issue of crime on the island.
We, as an island, have to start thinking about acquiring some vehicular scanners for the port to assist us in that regard. And while I am not in any way suggesting that those who are culpable are not Tobagonians, because we don't know, we just don't know at this point, what is clear is that our borders are open and it is easy for people to transport contrabands.
The Tobago Security Council meeting is expected to be a regular occurrence. Switching to sports, the 6 regional franchises are ready for the resumption of the West Indies Championship. The Marquee Regional 4-day tournament will restart on Wednesday, May 18th with the 3rd round. The first 2 rounds were played in February ahead of the Apex Tech Series. Barbados Pride stands at the top of the table, followed by Trinidad and Tobago Red Force. Barbados heads into round 3 on 42 points with the home team on 38.6 points and the Leeward Islands Hurricanes rounding out top 3 with 24.6 points. For the 3rd round, Barbados faces Guyana Happy Eagles at the Queen's Park Oval. Trinidad and Tobago will meet Leeward Islands Hurricanes at Diego Martin, while Jamaica Scorpions and Windward Islands Volcanoes face off at the Brian Lara Cricket Academy. And that was your TTT News. I am Roxanne Suraj, wishing you a great day.
This is TTT. Live for local.
The best for your baby is at thebesttoys.com. From the best strollers, car seats, baby carriers, high chairs, booster seats, rockers, jumpers and bouncers, walkers, baby blankets, feeding accessories, bathtubs, gyms and playmats, playpens, cribs, baby swings, changing tables, diaper bags, clothing and accessories, and the widest range of educational toys. We carry Infantino, Dr. Brown, Avent, Graco, Chico, Fisher-Price, VTech, Leapfrog, Disney Baby, Delta Children, Medela, and Twist Shape. Visit us in-store at Forces Flagship McLean. Shop online now at thebesttoys.com. No credit card required. Free delivery throughout Trinidad and Tobago on orders over $300. Cash or links on delivery. Order via call or WhatsApp at 332-BABY. And remember, we have the best toys at the best prices.